This is the Centaur Knight for RIN, and the Centaur Knight is the first of the expanded classes that we will get into. There are eight of them, eight standard and eight expanded. The expanded classes are all different races. They're meant to be very otherworldly kinds of creatures, like playing a Vulcan in Star Trek. You have to really approach it differently. Very different culture, no emotions. Just the idea is that trying to get back to some of that older style AD&D where you don't have an imp who's a bartender and you got 500 tieflings and you have a bunch of halflings. Elves are all they lose their special, their uniqueness, I think. Even though that can be kind of fun, you have like a Baylor for the bartender and stuff, but that's not really the tone that Rin wants. You could have some little exceptional things like that, but it's really meant to be an old school kind of human centric world where these other races are different and something special and alien. And again, otherworldly is really the word that I use. So we'll get to the Centaur Knight. And from a role playing perspective, those limitations and those monolithic cultures, they're very interesting and can be very fun to play. Centaur Knight, generating the Knight. So he has high strength and high con. His agility is lower because he's so large. It's not that he's not necessarily agile, it's just due to his size, it's lower. His charisma ranges from a little bit below average to pretty good, and his intellect from -2 to +1, from pretty bad to okay, but not the emphasis of the class, and not they're a little bit more primal. Their civilization is not as just a little bit not as quick-witted, I suppose, or as educated, or as however you want to put that, but not stupid or anything. They're actually smarter than a barbarian, really. Um, so that is the class. Hit point base is the same as the barbarian, except their agility does max out at a lower amount. Um, they can't get a +3 agility like the barbarian, but otherwise same set. So a lot. And the other thing is the expanded classes, they level up twice as slowly. So you're going to be a level, and then at higher levels, 2 levels ahead of them. So regular characters, 100 XP to hit second, you need 200. So you just double it, whatever the need is. So 900, you need 1800. If it's 2500, you need 5000. So again, you start off more powerful, and you'll notice that definitely. But eventually there's like an interaction that's kind of interesting. You'll be a level ahead, so get a little advantage. Then yeah, the expanded class will level up, and then it's kind of like the AD&D that it was a great part of that game, that different classes level differently. It's kind of missing from later editions. Centaur racial traits. This is the other thing. You get racial traits that are unique to the race. So Centaur racial traits. Again, also this is the knight in shining armor that I want in Rin, but again, it's hard to put in because there's so many limitations on what if you don't have a mount. If you're an expert on a mount, but you're exploring the Underdark, or it's just so hard to put in. You are the mount, so you are the horse, you are the knight, essentially. You are the horse, and it actually functions pretty well. It gives you that interesting element of the knight in shining armor, but then also puts in the centaur, and that's what the races do, is they you pull kind of like a little niche or a little different archetype, but then you put the race on it, and it adds a really nice tone to it. So anyway, Centaur racial traits. The knight suffers -2 stealth and -2 on checks made to climb. Again, with his immense strength, he can pull himself up and climb, but it's very difficult. But he may be used as a mount by a medium-sized creature, which is fun, like having a little, halfling or even a wizard riding around the centaur can be quite fun. Moving with a speed of walk 60, he also gains +2 to pathfinding proficiencies while in woodland environments. Again, he's a creature of the woods, so he gets bonuses there to both of his healing and survival proficiencies, and also to pathfinding. But when he's outside of that element, he's not there. A lot of adventures have woodland, it's pretty common, but some might not. So it's, again, totally tied to the race, and totally, it's either there or it isn't. The knight begins with Fey lineage and warfare. So the Fey lineage, the knight is a fusion of Fey, human, and horse, possessing extraordinary traits thereby. So again, how exactly what they are, Are they half horse? Are they half human? Are they, how you can kind of do it differently, but that's how I intend them to be, like a human and horse fey mixture. Chiron. The knight may use the healing proficiency twice as often for rest, and it heals twice as much damage and cures poison, disease, and paralysis. This is just like a differently named paladin ability. If you want to be a healer, again, that's Chiron, I believe, was the healing centaur. But um, and so it's again, healing is a part of that race, and so it's again in one of the, he's a very powerful warrior, but he does have the healing ability. So again, if it's a neat idea there. Hoof strike. Once per battle, when the knight strikes the foe in melee, the attack gains strength d6 plus agility d6. So you can get a nice hit with your hooves in, augments your damage, and it scales as your strength and agility increase. You can get up to 5d6 extra damage for a relatively low amount. Pegasus wings. The knight permanently grows wings, granting him fly 120, though he may only use them once every other round. So the idea is you're kind of expanding all these equine mythological things like unicorns, pegasi, centaurs. They're all kind of united in this class in some ways. And so, again, you can fly at 120, which is very fast, but only every other round. So you're not just permanently, you're just kind of taking the flight, but you're so huge you have to land. You're not actually a Pegasus. And it's cool. My wife would pick up people and drop them. She loved doing that, and she would love dropping to their deaths. Fly up 60 feet, drop them, and then land the other 60, and it can be pretty neat. And obviously the mobility. I mean, huge mobility, which warrior classes don't usually have a lot of mobility. It gives you a huge amount of mobility, and most classes don't have it. So very useful. Sagacity, you gain the insight proficiency as the paladin. So again, if you want to go down more the holy kind of mystical path, you can take on the insight proficiency, and this lets you basically have supernatural insight into things. So how dangerous, how honest is this person? How dangerous is this? How rare is this? You can just have a sixth sense through making an insight check. Spirited Charge. Once per battle, you gain a bonus to your con to AT and D20 plus level damage. So just a big, huge hit. So again, you can combine Spirited Charge and Hoof Strike, can be quite nasty. Stamina, you just a hit point bonus. You just want to be a tank, you can take that, which other warrior classes have that. But if you just want to be really tough, you can be tough. Unicorn Mane, kind of a niche thing. That gains resistance to poison, necrotic, and vampiric damage. So a lot of undead, this is the damage of their special attacks. You have resistance to that. Once per battle, you may cause the damage of a successful attack to become holy. So again, kind of tying into that kind of otherworldly, holy, celestial element. Unicorn Mane, Chiron is healing, sagacity. So if you want to be kind of like a paladin, knight, kind of a good knight in shining armor, the true, you can take that element. Virility just gives you armor bonuses, just pure. Again, other classes have similar to that. You can just load up on virility and stamina, and you just take a ton of damage. The knight gain, and then warfare. The other element from the Fey lineage, other than that, is the warfare. So the knight gains +1 attack and defend, and an improved damage die with all weapons. And he has his Constitution bonus to the damage of all attacks. So he's adding his strength and his con. Once per round, before or after he performs a melee attack, he may quickly draw his bow and fire it, then immediately re-equip his melee weapon without penalty. So this is unique. He's the only class. Now, the Ranger has an ability kind of similar to this where he can draw a melee weapon and attack with it. But this is fundamental to the class, and he can do it without any penalty. So you've got your melee weapon out. You attack someone, you draw your bow and fire. There's no, it's a really cool, unique thing where they have a powerful melee and ranged attack, and they get it every round. Just kind of this warrior that we fire an arrow, run into melee. It's a cool kind of unique dynamic to the Centaur Knight. Citadel, just a bunch of prowess if you want to have a shield. Great Wield. The knight may wield two-handed melee weapons in one hand without penalty, and when he wields a two-handed melee a weapon with both hands, he gains D8 damage. So you take a two-handed weapon, you gain more damage, or you can just take a one-handed weapon or two-handed weapon and put it in one hand without the, it's more effective. So again, you want to wield a great sword or a great axe, or you can have it in your giant halberd, just wield it one-handed because you're so large. Precision, getting rid of range penalties if you want to focus on the archery element. Sagittarian, D8 bonus with all bows. So again, if you want to focus on the bow element, you can take Sagittarian and Precision, or you can take you could take Great Will and Sagittarian, then your bow attack and your sword attack have extra damage. So again, just basically pretty straightforward class, but it's really solid with the combat. Slaying, once per battle, the knight successfully strikes foe, the attack gains his AT bonus to damage. This is actually identical to the barbarian slaying, so he kind of has a mix of. He has his own thing, but he also has kind of a lot of mixes that fit the idea of the knight in shining armor. But it's a very tight concept, so it's a little more limiting. And again, the race classes tend to be that way. They're more monolithic. So 2-weapon fighting, you can fight with a weapon at each hand. So again, you can take Great Will and 2-weapon fighting, go in there with 2 great axes and maul people, and can be quite potent. Then we have proficiencies, very simple, just healing and survival. So he has supernatural healing through sight, he can heal himself or others, which can be kind of nice. It is based off his constitution instead of his charisma, like the paladin, because his charisma is crappy, so it's based off of con. And also just the con is his magic's kind of pulling more from his constitution, his physiology. And survival is the barbarian and the ranger have it, the druid have it. So the Centaur Knight can function as kind of a crappy wilderness guy, but when he adds his bonus in woodland environments, then he becomes equivalent or better. He's as good as the ranger, actually, as it really comes down to. But outside of that element, if he's taken to a desert or a swamp, he can still make it, and it's very useful, but not nearly as effective. But again, some survival skills, a little bit of healing, but fitting the concept. But again, a more kind of tight, I guess I call it truncated. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's just that concept is pretty solid, and just functionally fitting the concept of a Centaur Knight. The knight begins with 1 weapon, 1 bow, 1 weapon or shield, so like a backup weapon or shield, and then he gets any kind of armor, and then some silver pieces, pretty standard for warrior classes. But he does get a bow and a melee weapon, so again, that's key to the class, is getting ranged in a melee attack every round. He gets bonuses to strength when he levels, anything other than strength, and then any attribute of his choice. Again, it's pretty standard. When his features max out, Fey Lineage gives him 24 hit point base. Warfare gives him +8 hit point base, and then +1 attack, defend, and +4 damage of all attacks. Again, just straightforward combat things. And with the proficiencies, same thing. When they max out, as the other classes, most of them they become D12s, and so that is the Centaur Knight, the first of the expanded classes.